tried a lot of different programs and formulas, methods, processes, and they just didn't work. I was just getting more and more frustrated and going deeper into a hole of trying to figure things out, going into ego dread, existential crisis. And then I got to such a low point where everything I was just pushing away, or I'm not pushing away at, but I just had everything, I just felt like everything had abandoned me and I was abandoning everything. I just let everything go. I just surrendered. And when that happened, I realized that, all these processes, all these methods, all these things that say, hey, just follow these steps, it works for everybody. And if it doesn't work for you, you feel left out in the cold. You feel like there's something inherently wrong with you. You're flawed, you're stupid, you're worthless, all this other stuff. And none of that is true. It's just that you're meant to create with more raw resources and materials. The true innovators, visionaries, creators are here to create with the raw material of the plasmic field, what I call, it's like the imprintable, impressionable field, where all potentials exist, and it is our desire or will impressed upon that field that draws things forth, magnetizes them into our physical reality, so we can call them results or outcomes or circumstances or conditions. And some of us are working with a level of mind where other people's steps or processes that are made up by them are not going to work for us, because it feels oftentimes like, yeah, well, this should work for everybody, should work for me, without us realizing a deeper inherent truth that we need to be the creators. We need to be the ones that make stuff up, that work for us. So I thought, well, what's the overriding, governing, ordering principles that are at work? What is the structure that is guiding these processes of people on this earth plane making shit up, including myself? And it's universal laws. It's spiritual universal laws. And so when we're working with that raw materia, what we can work with as creators is like the mana of the universe, the mana of the cosmos, uninterfered by, undistorted by anything else that anyone has made up. So we get to take, the raw resources and make something up, create something. And the rub is we're not really creating anything. We're pulling from that field to work with something that exists in a timeline where it already is fully fleshed out. It's already fully expressed. It's just that now, once we come to this realization, if you want to call it that, we are in the vibration. We are opening up the contents of our consciousness to such a degree that now we can access that. It makes sense to us where it didn't make sense before. We feel like we're hitting our head against a wall before. Now it makes sense. I'm not supposed to work with someone else's process. I'm supposed to make my own. And if these are the guidelines, the waypoints on a map, if you will, that are the ordering principles of the universe that allow anything to be made up and have structure and take hold in a physical reality realm like we have on 3D Earth, then if I'm working with those, what works, what other process works for another person, and they say works for them, works for everybody, I can take those same ordering principles and use them as the waypoints, the guidelines, the structure, the navigation to help me make up what I need to make up that works for me, that works with my own and for my own and in service to my own energetic signature of who I am. Because anything else will feel derivative to me. And that's what started Leading Edge Creator. That's what started the raw building blocks, what were once tinker toys and now are fully fleshed out crystalline buildings of tools and resources, and a map for basically working with something that might seem really esoteric to people. People they think about the universal laws and it sounds really stoic. It sounds too esoteric. It sounds too nebulous, too out there, too boring, too maybe beyond them, too hard to learn. None of that shit is true. These are the ordering guidelines that brings order and form out of chaos or the unform. It brings the manifest out of the unmanifest. What's boring about that? Nothing. It's the most exciting thing that there is. And so I'm not teaching you how to create a process or a method or a formula. What I'm sharing with you is the many ways, and in a very grounded, practical, tangible, hands-on, real-world way, how to take these guiding principles, these organizing mechanisms that create the fabric of the cosmos itself, and taking them down from the ethereal, the esoteric, and bringing them down into a grounded way in your own life, so that you know how to build your own process, formulate your own best path and passageway forward, your own best formula, your own best method that's only going to work and is bespoke to you. Now, if it sounds like a lot, well, I want you to take a step back from that for a moment and just just get very real for a second about what would it feel like if you're creating your reality as you go. You're creating your life as you go, where you're super present. You are completely in the now moment. You are no longer giving your power away to impressions of the past, dragging those impressions from yesterday into your today. And you're no longer expending and funding so much energy towards future potentials that are unwritten and have so many different ways that they could work out. You're investing or worrying about one particular potential that's not going to work out the way you like, or one outcome that's not going to show up in a way that's preferable to you. And you're funding a bunch of energy towards that, when instead you're working with such a level of trust and surrender with the universe that you know you're going to get information in the moment as you need it. Because you're working in such harmony and beautiful synchronized dance. You're tangoing with these universal laws and working in such a peace and a harmony and symphony with them. So that just like the flow of the universe itself, or what we would call the natural world, is, has these guidelines of the universal laws working for them to help create order and structure out of the chaos in the natural world. The same thing is happening in our lives. We are part of the natural world, except we don't think of ourselves that way. We still think of ourselves as our human existence as being manufactured to a certain degree. We are nature. Nature is within us, it's without. And so when we realize that working with these same laws that organize the fabric of the cosmos itself, and we're doing so in such an undistorted way, such a way where we have given over our trust, we're surrendering to this information, we're working with a creative level of mind, a creative genius that is already open to this information, this wisdom, this sacred knowledge. And so we're taking it in without trying to swat away at it because we're in another moment of, ego panic and existential dread. Instead, we're saying, I'm going to get the information exactly as I need it. And so if I'm working on something, I don't have to do endless planning and drive myself nuts trying to figure out all the nuts and bolts of this thing and how to build it out. Instead, I just remain open. Instead, I make the most important thing that I do is maintaining my vibration, maintaining a feeling of, and it's not that we can't have bad moods. It's not that we won't, feel things that are lower creational forces of this planet. We will. But the trick is to maintain a high vibration so that even a bad mood can't undo the bigger umbrella of your overall vibration of who you are. You know who you are. You remember who you are. You're living at the essence and the behest of your soul being, who already knows this map, already knows that these waypoints on this map showing you exactly where to go are the universal spiritual laws. Instead, you're giving yourself over more to that vantage point of view. And it's not like you abandon your human. It's not that you're ungrounded in your human, but rather where we have had the scales tipped out of balance before, of less of the divine feminine, of surrendering to our creative genius and our inner intuitive mechanism. Now we get the tip the scales back in the favor of taking a little bit less off the plate of the rational, analytical, thought-driven human aspect of us, the mental matter that we think that everything is figure-outable in terms of what's available in the mind. The conscious mind isn't that great. Not on its own. It needs help. It needs the buffer of our intuitive knowledge. And so when we are able to balance these scales and experience a more egalitarianism between the divine feminine of the subconscious, the superconscious, the intuitive knowing, our creative genius mechanism that knows exactly what to do when we're presented with our next steps and not a moment before. We can balance that out with, yes, we're still logical, rational human beings. We're still practical. We're still in a body. We're still grounded into needing certain outcomes, situations, circumstances, and conditions to show up in our lives to support us. We can balance those things. And so this is really the mark of a spiritual maturity, a kind of emotional intelligence that maybe has not been really laid out for us in such an accessible way on this planet before, but it is now. And for the last 2 years, I've been building my life and my business around this. And I'll never look back. I mean, I have moments where I get taken out of it. That's just going to happen. But my natural default and go-to vibration is that I remember who I am. I remember I'm a soul being with incredible amount of resources at the ready when I need them. And to access them when I need them is to be in the energy of full-on allowance and receptivity and not a biscuit less than that. It's got to be full-on surrender. It has to be like a free fall into a knowing. I know that I know that I know that I know this is meant for me, that I'm doing this and I'm creating this and I can create whatever I want. I can be, do, and have whatever I want. I can magnetize to me whatever I want, provided I am adhering to these guidelines and with a sense of love, with a sense of duty that, yeah, I'm going to have this take care of something in my life, but it is something that is going to come in such a generous overflow that I'll have more than enough to pay it forward to whoever else needs some of this good stuff too. As long as we are working with a level of kindness, with a level of love, and adhering to these guiding principles, these organizing mechanisms of the universe known as spiritual laws, which are responsible for shaping the fabric of the cosmos itself, life takes on a whole different tone, a whole different hue. You might hear bird song as you're walking around. You might even feel like you're floating around as you walk around and navigate through your day. It's a different kind of feeling. It's a different way of embracing life. And it's not about chasing a singular outcome or a singular circumstance, a singular result. That is way too myopic. And it won't work for you if this is your mindset. The mindset is life is the long game. I'm going to keep practicing this every day, day in and day out, because life is the long game. I'm only interested in being so well resourced for the long haul. That's what I'm interested in. And so well resourced that I have more than enough. And of course, it's a foregone conclusion. I'll be able to pay it out in dividends to my family, my friends, my community, because I'll have more than enough. I will be living in overflow. I will be living with an energetic minimum of overflow. Now, when I put it to you that way, think about how that feels. Let it rise up like a feeling in the belly, something that overtakes you, something that is so beautiful in its magnanimity that you feel almost taken apart by it. It's so beautiful. And that'll give you a glimpse into what Leading Edge Creator is all about.